Well, welcome back, folks. In today's Shop Talk, we're going to briefly review the auxiliary fuel tank that I rigged up some time ago, many years ago, to use with my various projects, particularly motorcycle projects. Typically, I don't keep fuel in the fuel tanks of my restoration projects. And in fact, of the four or five complete restorations I've ever done, I think only one of them has ever had fuel in a fuel tank, and that's the Kawasaki H2 750 Triple. The other four bikes, I've never had fuel in a tank because I don't ride them or run them off the regular fuel tank. I run them off of this tank. This is simply a small equipment fuel tank off a lawnmower, lawn tractor, something of that nature. I picked it up, I believe, if I recall, at a flea market in the area some time ago. And as you can see there, the cap looks like it got heat, damage from heat, but it doesn't make any difference because it doesn't leak. It's plastic, and I simply rigged up to use it as an auxiliary tank. A little bit of a bracket here. You can see I got a V-shaped bracket on this end and this end. These holes were already in the tank, and they have inserts, steel threaded inserts. That was used, I'm sure, to mount the fuel tank on the original equipment. Just took a piece of coat hanger wire, which is nice and stiff, and made a V-shaped bracket on both ends and attached it underneath the screws. Took a bail off of an old bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket or something similar, and hooked it around the end, as you can see here at each side, so that I got a handle to hold it from or hang it from. Then I made this little simple hook, also out of coat hanger wire, and looped it around the handle. I put a piece of small fuel line, probably vent tube line, over the end of the hook because that was kind of sharp, and it makes it a little safer to handle, so that I can hang like that. Off the bottom, I simply took a couple of pieces of 1/4 inch 6mm fuel line, inside diameter fuel line, because that's what this fitting was coming out of the bottom of the tank. I wanted this flexible so it could move, and this is just some old fuel line I had. In fact, all of this was basically parts I had laying around. And I clamped a short piece, a little fuel filter, another piece going into a T fitting here. So this setup currently rigged can feed 2 carburetors at the same time. When I did my Kawasaki Triple, what I did is I put another T in one of these. So I took 2 off this way and 1 off the other way. But I don't run the Triple that often, and I just re-rig it when I need to. Right now it's set up. I'm setting it up rather for the Yamaha Wild 1, getting ready to fire that bike up, so I had to kind of dig this out of storage. I don't use it all that often, actually. A couple, again, pieces of short, a fuel line. Each output line has its own shutoff valve, like you can see there. And then I use clear line going off to the carburetors. And these 2 lines right here are what go to the carburetors. And I just have them zip tied together right now for convenience. I prefer to use clear fuel line or clear line on these 2 lines here on the output end. Then I can see if fuel is flowing okay. I don't care up in here, it's not as relevant. This is not fuel line, this is just vinyl hose that I got at a hardware store. So over time it does get real brittle and hard, and then I have to replace it. I could someday, I suppose, replace this with fuel line, just haven't got around to it. Usually when I'm done with the tank, that is using it for a given project, I empty the fuel out. I don't store fuel in this either, unless I've got several projects back to back pending to be started, and that rarely happens for me. To use it, I simply hang it from usually a ladder, a step ladder cross rung, right like that. And then I connect the 2 output hoses to the respective carburetors, put a little fuel in it, open up the valves, and you're in business. Very inexpensive. I don't remember what I paid for this anymore, probably $1 or $2. They're all over the place at flea markets and that kind of thing. You can buy auxiliary fuel tanks, by the way, commercially made. They're fairly pricey. They tend to be more cylinder shaped or teardrop shaped. They tend to run vertical rather than horizontal. Usually made out of some kind of a plastic fuel resistant material. A little bit on the expensive side. And I don't use one all that often, so it's not like I'm doing this every week. I might use it once a year, maybe not even that often. So it's not worth me investing a lot of money. This works just fine if I hang it, like you can see here. A little bit better shot of that like that. If I hang it, it works just fine, and it's always served me quite well. So if you're ever interested in making yourself or rigging up a auxiliary fuel tank, find yourself a little plastic tank like this, or metal. It could be made out of metal too. In the old days they made these out of metal. The more recent last 40 years I think they've been basically plastic. Rig it up with some spare fuel line. Again, I didn't have to buy anything here, anything new here. All of this most of it has been bought at one time or the other, but most of it was in my inventory, with the exception of the tank itself and the handle. I took off an old plastic pail I had. I got quite a few 2.5 and 5 gallon plastic pails in storage in my pole barn. So I thought I'd share that with you today, folks. You will see this in use a little bit later date on the Yamaha YL1 when I go to start that project up. In the meantime, any thoughts, issues, questions, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.